This happened a few months ago when I was 22. I was working at a local convenience store. I thought it would be an easy job, just stocking shelves and ringing up customers, but things changed quickly. On my third shift, I noticed someone outside. It was late at night and the store was almost empty. I saw a figure standing under the neon light. They looked like they were just watching me. I stepped outside, feeling uneasy. "Do you need help?" I asked. They didn't answer. They just stared at me with these intense eyes. After a moment, they turned and walked away. I felt a chill. Maybe it was nothing. But then, they came back. Again and again. They stood further away each time, like they didn't want to be seen too closely. I tried to ignore it. I focused on my work, stocking candy and ringing up drinks, but I could feel their gaze on me, heavy and suffocating. Night after night, I felt like they were watching me, watching my every move. One night, I found something strange. In the restroom, there were messages scrawled in weird handwriting. "I see you," one said. "You can't hide," another. I shivered, wondering who could have written them. I had no idea how they got in there. My stomach twisted in knots. Items started disappearing too, little things like candy bars. It felt off, like something was very wrong. Then one night, things escalated. I was closing up the store, and they were right outside the entrance. I could see them just standing there. My heart raced. I walked outside, forcing myself to ask, "Are you lost?" They stared at me again. Their face was half hidden in the shadows. After a long pause, they took a step back and vanished into the dark. My skin crawled. I didn't want to stay out there anymore. The final encounter was even worse. I was alone in the store that night, the glow of the fluorescent lights making everything feel eerie. I had just finished sweeping the floor when I looked up. There he was, closer than ever, right outside the window. I felt frozen. I could hardly breathe. I wanted to run, but couldn't. I managed to ask, "Are you okay?" His gaze pierced me. Then he spoke, his voice low and chilling. "Why did you leave her?" My blood ran cold. I looked around, confused. There was nobody else. Just me, the empty parking lot, and the feeling of dread swallowing me whole. I didn't know who he meant. The unease washed over me as I turned back to the window. But he was gone. Just like that. I never returned to that store. I couldn't shake off those encounters. I still wonder, who was he? And who was the her he mentioned? I've moved on, but I've never stopped looking over my shoulder. I tried to forget it all. Days turned into weeks, and I threw myself into my new job at a coffee shop. It was busy and bright, a stark contrast to the dim convenience store. I was happy at first, but the unease lingered like a shadow. One evening, I was cleaning the espresso machine when a customer walked in. As I turned around to greet them, my heart sank. It was him. The same figure, the same piercing gaze. He stood in the doorway, framed by the warm light of the café. I felt my throat tighten. I couldn't believe it. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer. He just watched me, as if searching for something deeper. The other customers seemed oblivious. If they only knew, I thought. After a painfully long moment, he stepped back, disappearing into the shadows of the night once more. Panic surged through me. I rushed to the back of the cafe, my hands shaking as I dialed my friend. I needed to talk. I needed someone to understand. When I filled her in, she laughed it off, thinking I was distressed. "You probably misremembered him. You're safe here," she said, her voice soothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there. Later that night, as I walked to my car, anxiety gnawed at me. I checked my surroundings, but the streets were empty. I told myself I was overreacting, that he couldn't be following me. I started my car and drove home, but I kept looking in my rearview mirror. The next day, I decided to take a different route to work, hoping I'd calm my nerves. But as I passed by the old convenience store, my heart stopped. There he was, leaning against the building, arms crossed, staring right at me. He didn't seem to care if I saw him. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to run, but somehow I kept driving. I made it to the cafe, my hands almost slipping off the steering wheel. I took a deep breath and decided to take precautions. I would talk to my manager and see if there was any way to keep an eye out. Just as I was settling into my shift, I noticed a folded piece of paper on the counter where I'd been working. It was the same strange handwriting I'd seen in the store's restroom. I picked it up with trembling fingers. "I know where you are."
A chill washed over me. My breath came in short gasps. Someone was watching me again. My eyes darted around the cafe, searching for answers, but all I saw were familiar faces, lost in their coffees and conversations. Then I felt it, the weight of someone's gaze burning into me. I turned slowly, afraid of what I'd find. That's when I saw him. He stood just outside, and this time he smiled. My stomach dropped. Why was he smiling? I stepped back, heart pounding. I needed to know who he was now more than ever, but my instincts screamed to run. Instead, I stood frozen, unable to look away from the promise of chaos in his eyes. I couldn't breathe. His smile felt like a trap, luring me into a web I was desperate to escape. I glanced at the other customers again. They were immersed in their own lives, blissfully unaware of the danger that lingered just outside the cafe doors. I had to act. I darted into the back room, my heart racing. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. I couldn't let him scare me.
I wouldn't let him take control. Lily? My manager's voice cut through my thoughts. He had his arms crossed, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? I opened my eyes and forced a nod, terrified that if I said the truth, he might think I was overreacting. Yeah, just a little overwhelmed, I replied. He raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Instead, he started talking about the order we needed to fill. I faked interest, but my mind was still fixated on him. Was he still out there in the shadows, watching? A few minutes later, I gathered the courage to peek out the window. My stomach sank. He was gone. But where? I felt a tightness in my chest at the thought of him sneaking around, waiting for the right moment to strike. I went back to my shift, serving drinks but distracted by every sound. The espresso machine hissed more than usual, and the bell over the door chimed like an alarm each time a customer walked in. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting to see him standing there again. Around closing time, the cafe emptied quickly. I was counting tips when I heard a soft knock on the glass. I looked up, and there he was, standing at the door again. I froze. Just a few hours had passed since I last saw him, yet everything about him felt different, more intense, more dangerous. This time he didn't smile. Instead, he pointed a finger at me as if signaling to come outside. What did he want? I had to make a decision, stay inside where I felt safe or confront whatever he had planned. I glanced at the phone on the counter. Maybe I should call the police, but thoughts of being dismissed as paranoid crept in. Before I could decide, he started to walk away, turning his back on me. My instincts screamed to follow him, to understand where he was going, but I couldn't move. I felt trapped in a nightmare. Then my phone buzzed. I jumped and grabbed it, heart pounding. It was a text from my friend. "Hey, you've been acting weird. Want to talk?" I wanted to scream back, tell her everything, but instead I quickly typed, "Can you meet me?" As I sent it, I looked back out the window, hoping to see him still there, but the street was empty again. A feeling of dread washed over me. I couldn't shake it. Something was very wrong. He might be watching, but I needed to know who he was. That thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I grabbed my jacket, ready to confront whatever awaiting me outside. That's when I noticed a flash of color on the ground where he had been standing. I stepped outside, my heart racing. I knelt to pick it up, and my blood ran cold. It was a photograph. I turned it over, and the breath left my lungs. There was my face, clear as day. And behind me was the convenience store, a figure lingering in the shadows. I stumbled back, staring at the photograph in disbelief. He had been watching me all along. I stood frozen, the photograph shaking in my hands. The figure behind me in the photo looked eerily familiar, but I couldn't place him. A chill crept up my spine. Was this a sick joke? I raced back into the cafe, shutting the door behind me as if it could seal away the terror lingering beyond the glass. My thoughts raced as I stared at the image again. My heart thudded like a pendulum, swinging between confusion and fear. "Lily?" my manager called from the back. "Everything all right?" I didn't answer. Instead, I hurried into the storage room, shutting the door. My hands shook as I slid down to the floor, the photo beside me. I needed to think. What if he had left more of these? What if I was being watched? I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found my friend's number. My thumb hovered over call. I needed someone. But what could I tell her? that I felt like I was in a horror movie. I chickened out and just texted, "Meet me at the diner down the street." After pressing send, I glanced around the darkened storage room. The shadows loomed like predators in the night, and I felt every second ticking away, heavy and oppressive. I couldn't stay here much longer. I had to know more, even if it scared me. With a shaky breath, I stood and made my way to the main room. My manager had already locked the cafe doors and was preparing to leave. I could hear the faint sound of his radio playing music in the background. "Are you staying late?" he asked, looking up at me. I hesitated. "Yeah, just want to clean up a bit." "All right, just be careful. Don't be out too late." I nodded, but as soon as he left, I felt the weight of solitude settle in. I stepped outside, the night air prickling my skin. Each shadow felt like a hidden threat. I looked up and down the street, scanning for any sign of him, but I saw nothing. Only the streetlights flickered. I was about to pull my phone out again when I saw a figure at the far end of the street. My breath caught. It was him. He leaned casually against a lamppost, arms crossed, watching me. Panic surged within me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to act. I turned and hurried toward the diner, my feet pounding against the pavement. When I reached the diner, I slipped inside, my heart racing. The bell chimed as I entered, and the familiar scent of coffee and fried food wrapped around me. I scanned the room for my friend, but then glanced back out the window. He hadn't followed me. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by dread. If he was still out there, what did he want? I felt a sense of urgency to figure this out. I couldn't be the only one in danger. Just then, my phone vibrated. I looked down to see a new text. It was from my friend. "I'm here." When I turned around, I saw her waving from a booth. I rushed over, feeling safe surrounded by people. But as I settled into the seat, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced at the door, half expecting him to stroll in at any moment. "Lily, you okay?" she asked, concern furrowing her brow. "Not really," I admitted, showing her the photograph. "I need to tell you something." But before I could explain, I caught a glimpse of movement in the reflection of the window. My stomach dropped as I turned slowly. He was there again, just outside, looking right at me. My heart raced as I locked eyes with him through the window. I hadn't imagined it. There he was, a jolt of recognition coursing through me. Panic clawed at my throat, and I fumbled for my phone. "Who is that?" my friend whispered, noticing my distress. I hesitated, not wanting to panic her. "I'm not sure," I stammered, "but he keeps appearing." She turned in her seat, asserting her protective instincts. "What do we do?" "I don't know," I snapped, frustration and fear merging. The figure outside was still there, studying me. I felt like an animal cornered by a predator. I looked around the diner, trying to gauge the other patrons. A few people were hunched over their meals, oblivious to my growing dread. The waitress was chatting with an older couple, immersed in their own world. Did no one else see him? I swallowed hard. We should leave, now. "Lily." No arguments. My voice was urgent, leaving no room for doubt. We needed to get out of here. I placed the photograph face down on the table, hoping it would somehow stay hidden from him. As we rose from our seats, I dared another glance through the window. To my horror, he had moved closer. He now leaned against the glass, his eyes locked on mine. A knot twisted in my stomach. "Let's just go," I said, my voice trembling. We hurried toward the door, the bell chiming ominously as we pushed it open. The cold air hit me like a slap, and I felt exposed. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, casting furtive glances about the street, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Did we lose him?" my friend asked, her voice shaky but hopeful. I didn't answer, instead leading the way as we walked toward my car parked a few blocks down. My heart was still racing. I couldn't shake the image of his unsettling gaze. It felt as if he was embedded in my mind, taunting me. Suddenly, a figure darted across the street, a shadow moving too quickly. I froze, my blood turning to ice. "Lily, what is it?" My friend's question was lost in the rush of panic surging through me. "Did you see that?" I whispered, pointing. "See what?" Before I could reply, that same figure emerged again, this time darting between two parked cars. My heart pounded harder. "It's him. He's following us," she said, fumbling for her phone. "No," I hissed. "If he knows where we are, I don't want to be in the open."
I could feel my composure slipping. My instinct screamed for us to move, but I felt paralyzed by fear. "Let's just get to the car," I said, trying to maintain a brave front. Every step felt heavier, each sound amplified, the crunch of gravel underfoot, the distant roar of a car engine.
I glanced back nervously. His silhouette appeared again, this time not far behind us. "Run!" I shouted, and we bolted toward my car. As I scrambled for the keys in my pocket, I could hear my friend gasping beside me. We reached the car, and I fumbled with the locks, my fingers trembling. A bead of sweat trickled down my temple as I finally clicked it open. "Get in!" I shouted, practically shoving her inside. I jumped into the driver's seat, slamming the door behind me. I turned the key in the ignition. Nothing. My stomach sank. No, not now. "Lily, come on!" my friend urged, looking back. That's when I saw it. He was right there, his face pressed against the window, pores visible in the dim light. And then everything started to blur as I realized we were trapped. I pressed the key again. Still nothing. Panic swelled in my chest. "Start, please," I whispered desperately, my hands shaking. "Lily!" my friend shouted, her voice breaking. "He's coming!" I whipped my head around. He had moved to my side of the car, his eyes wide and intent. I felt exposed in the driver's seat, the metal and glass almost meaningless against his presence. My heart thudded in my ears. "Hold on!" I shouted as I shoved the key with more force. Finally, the engine sputtered and roared to life. "Go! Go!" she screamed, her voice high with terror. I slammed the gas pedal down without even checking the rearview mirror. The tires squealed, and we lurched forward. With every second that passed, it felt like a weight lifted. I stole a glance back. He was still standing there, watching us drive away, his figure shrinking in the distance, like a dark shadow against the streetlights. "I can't believe that just happened," my friend said, breathless. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. "Who was that?" "I don't know," I muttered, gripping the steering wheel so hard that my palms started to ache. "But he's been following me for weeks now." "What do you mean?" Her eyes were wide as she turned to me. "You should have said something." "I didn't think it was serious," I admitted, guilt flooding through me. "Just some guy who keeps showing up at the cafe I work at. I thought maybe he was just a regular." "Lily, this isn't right. We need to report him." She looked at me, her fear turning into something sharper. I opened my mouth to argue, but stopped. What could I even say? "Hi, police. There's a guy who appeared outside a diner and stared at me a lot. They'd think I was crazy." "Forget about that for now. Just keep driving." I needed to focus on getting back to my apartment. The air felt like it had thickened around us, stifling the thoughts racing through my mind. As I navigated the streets, a sickening feeling coiled in my stomach. What if he wasn't just watching? What if he followed us? When we turned a corner, a sense of dread washed over me. "I need to check my phone," I said, breathing heavily. I grabbed it from the center console where I'd tossed it in my haste. As I turned it on, a vibration jolted my hand. A new message. My heart lurched as I read it. "Did you enjoy our little meeting? I'll see you soon." "Lily?" my friend said, her voice trembling slightly. I looked at her, my mouth suddenly dry. "It's him." "What?" she asked, panic sharpening her tone. "The message. He was right there. And now this." Suddenly the car felt claustrophobic. I could almost sense him lingering nearby, a ghostly presence I couldn't escape. "We need to go to the police." Her determination was evident, but my instinct screamed at me. What if he was waiting for us there? My mind raced. What if he knows where we live? We can't go home just yet. Then what do we do? She asked, her eyes darting around as if expecting him to leap from the shadows. I thought hard, desperation flooding my thoughts. Let's go to the mall. It's crowded, and there are security guards. We can hide there, regroup. That's a plan, I guess. She replied, and I heard the hesitation in her voice. I turned the car, letting the engine roar louder, getting us moving. The streetlights flickered past, shadows creeping like fingers reaching for me. A new thought burrowed deep in my mind. What if he's already there? I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. What if each twist and turn only drew us closer to danger? But there was no turning back now. The urgency surged within me. I had to get us somewhere safe before it was too late. The mall came into view, bright lights shining like beacons in the night. I turned into the parking lot and scanned the area, looking for a place to park. If he was watching, I needed to be smart about this.
I spotted a spot near the entrance, but I hesitated. "Can't we park further away?" my friend suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. "I want to be inside as soon as possible." I parked, and we both jumped out, keeping low as we dashed towards the automatic sliding doors. My heart raced, and I could hear it pounding in my ears. The noise of the mall enveloped us, laughter and footsteps blending into a cacophony had felt strangely comforting. Once inside, we stopped to catch our breath. My friend leaned against a wall, eyes wide with fear. "Now I'd look for security," I said, scanning the crowd. I didn't want to waste time. "Let's head to the food court. It'll be the busiest place, and there should be guards around." As we navigated through the crowd, I tried to keep my face neutral. I didn't want the panic to show. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I hesitated, fear gripping me. What if it was another message? I could almost hear his voice in my head, taunting me. I needed to know, though. "Wait here," I told my friend, stepping to the side. I pulled out my phone and opened the message. "Where are you?" It read. My stomach dropped. The uncertainty coursed through me. "I think he's close. Lily?"
She rushed to my side, her face pale. "Are you okay?" "Not really," I said quietly, slipping my phone back into my pocket. "We have to find security." We hurried through the food court, weaving between groups of teenagers and families. My chest tightened as I searched for any sign of danger. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us, and I felt overwhelmed by the noise and the unpredictability of the crowd. "Over there!" My friend pointed toward a group of uniformed guards chatting near an information kiosk. We made our way toward them, my heartbeat syncopated with our hurried steps. Every shadow felt alive, and I half expected to see him jump out at us from behind the curly-haired kid with a stack of nachos. "Excuse me," I called, my voice surprisingly steady despite the shakiness in my hands. The guards turned to us, looking confused. "We need help." "Everything all right?" one of them asked, his expression shifting from casual to concerned when he noticed the fear in my eyes. "There's someone following me," I explained quickly, sensing urgency. "He's been stalking me for weeks, and I think he's in the mall." Before I could finish, my phone buzzed again. This time I didn't hesitate. I pulled it out. He just texted me again. The guard reached over, taking a look. But before I could respond, something else caught my attention. A man was lingering at the entrance, scanning the crowd, his frame too familiar. My breath caught in my throat, the realization crashing over me like ice water. "That's him," I whispered, pointing, the intensity of my fear rising as the world around me blurred. The guards moved instantly, urgency replacing their earlier calm. "Stay here," one commanded, as they hurried toward the figure. The noise in the mall faded, the adrenaline drowning out everything but my heartbeat, hammering out a desperate rhythm of warning. Suddenly, I lost sight of him, my stomach twisted. Had he seen us? "Lily, what's happening?" My friend's voice broke through my panic. "I don't know," I breathed, fear flooding back. I felt the walls closing in and panic ripped through me. He could be anywhere now. Just as I turned to face my friend, a voice echoed from behind. "I wouldn't move if I were you." I froze. The voice sent a chill down my spine. It was deep and familiar, echoing in the chaos of the mall, filling the gaps where laughter and chatter once resided. I didn't need to turn around to know who it belonged to. "Lily." His tone dripped with mockery, a playful lilt that twisted my stomach. I was struck by a potent mixture of terror and disbelief. How had he gotten so close without us noticing? "Run!" I shouted to my friend, my body already moving before the words left my mouth. I didn't wait to see if she followed. I just knew we had to get away. I dashed toward the nearest store, weaving through the crowd like a pinball. Each face around me seemed oblivious, their laughter and casual conversations creating a veil over the impending danger. I heard footsteps behind me, quick and eager. My heart raced even faster. "Lily, stop!" he called out, an urgency in his voice that both confused and terrified me. I glanced back and caught a glimpse of him. He was pushing through the crowd, a predator on the hunt, eyes locked on me. Adrenaline surged through me as I ducked into a bookstore, skidding to a halt within the doorway. "Lily!" My friend's frantic voice pierced through the haze of fear. She tumbled in behind me, her breathing ragged. "What do I do?" "Hide!" I urged, scanning the rows of books. I spotted a small nook behind a shelf and grabbed her wrist, pulling her toward it. "We can't just stay here," she hissed, panic flooding her voice. "Just for a minute," I insisted, clutching my phone tightly in my hand. "I need to think." We crouched behind the shelf as I peered out into the store. I spotted the entrance, watching for him to appear. The seconds felt like hours, and the noise outside fell away, replaced by the pounding of my pulse. Then I saw him. He entered the bookstore, glancing around with a sly smile. But there was something in his eyes, an unsettling excitement. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Where are you, Lily?" he called, his voice echoing off the walls. The way he drawled my name felt like a sinister caress. I pushed my back harder against the shelf, willing myself not to breathe too loudly. My friend's eyes were wide, panic written across her face. "What do we do?" she whispered urgently. Then a flicker of movement caught my eye, a guard from the mall, stepping into the bookstore. Relief surged through me. I wanted to shout out, to grab his attention, but before I could, I caught a glimpse of my stalker's face, turning toward the guard. "Just looking for a friend," he said casually, but the menace in his tone was undeniable. The guard nodded, not sensing the danger. He turned toward the rest of the store, still unaware. I could barely think. We had to get out. My heart raced as I made a quick decision. "We need to create a distraction," I whispered to my friend. "Are you crazy?" she replied, eyes darting from me to the stalker. "Please, trust me." I released her wrist and stood up slowly, my eyes still locked on him. I took a deep breath and stepped out of our hiding spot, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Hey!" I called out, my voice steady, trying to mask the tremble within. The stalker turned, surprise electrifying his features. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" He smirked, but the challenge ignited a smoldering rage in his eyes. "Lily, you really shouldn't test me. You know what I'm capable of." The guard turned, confusion now etched on his face, and I felt the atmosphere shift in an instant. That's when I saw it, a flash of metal glinting in the fluorescent lights, buried deep within his coat. My breath hitched as realization hit me like a brick. "Run! Now!" I screamed before I could think twice. Our fight for survival had just begun. I spun on my heel, the adrenaline pushing me forward. I tugged at my friend's arm, yanking her out of the nook. "This way!" I shouted, darting toward the back of the store. I could hear him behind me, an echo of my own panic fueling his pursuit. "You'll regret this, Lily," he called, voice a low growl that sent shockwaves down my spine. I glanced back just in time to see the metal glimmer again, bright and lethal under the store lights. "Go!" I yelled to my friend, eyes wide with fear. She was right beside me, matching my frantic pace. Together, we barreled toward the back exit, praying it wasn't locked. We reached the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I pulled on the handle, praying for it to give way. It rattled, but didn't budge. I cursed under my breath, fear swirling in my gut like a storm. "It's locked." "Great, just perfect," she gasped, glancing over her shoulder. "What do we do now?" I quickly scanned the room. The store was a maze of shelves and knickknacks, but I had a plan. "We need to find another way out, to the left." We ran in that direction, weaving past shelves. I could hear his footsteps getting closer, and each step made me want to scream. "Keep moving," I urged, my voice strained. I skidded to another aisle and spotted a window above a row of picture books. "Over there," I pointed. "We can climb up." "No way, it's too high." "Do you want to take your chances with him?" I snapped. I glanced over my shoulder. He was getting closer, and I could almost see the malicious smile on his face. "Okay, fine," she relented. We scrambled toward the window, each heartbeat pounding in my ears. I hoisted myself up onto the bottom shelf, struggling to gain a foothold. My friend followed, her hand shaking. I reached for the window, pushing against the frame. It didn't budge. "Come on," I grunted, trying harder. "Lily!" She was panicking, and I could hear the desperation in her voice. "Just a little more," I cried. Then, with a loud creak, the window cracked open. Cool air rushed in, its pressure pulling me downward. "Yes, get up here." As I squeezed through, I heard the door slam open behind us. Feet thundered against the floor, and his breath was heavy with rage. "Where are you, Lily?" he taunted, voice dripping with venom. I dropped down outside, landing hard on the pavement. My feet hit the ground running. I turned back, my friend stumbling through the window just moments later. She landed in a heap beside me, scrambling to her feet. "Go!" I shouted, pulling her away from the store. We ran. The mall was chaotic, people still oblivious to the threat that lurked behind us. "What now?" she panted. "Parking lot. We have to get to my car." I see her toward the entrance. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear him, his footsteps pounding like drums. The thrill of terror surged through me. That's when I caught a flash of something unexpected. A dark figure standing at the entrance, silhouetted against the light. Panic surged anew. "We can't go that way!" I turned to find another exit, my mind racing. A new path lay ahead, but the voice behind us taunted me, urging me to falter. Just then, I spotted a security guard at the far end, but my heart sank. He wasn't alone. A second figure stood beside him, someone I didn't recognize, and the guard's expression was one of confusion. The threat multiplied, and dread clamped down on me like a vice. "Grab my hand!" I shouted to my friend. But before I could react further, a shout punctured the air, a commanding voice that I hadn't expected to hear. "Stop right there!" Everything shifted in an instant, and I felt the world tilt. The command echoed through the chaos like a gunshot, bringing everything to a sudden stillstand. The eerie calm that followed felt surreal, almost like a break in reality. I turned to see not one, but a pair of security guards standing resolutely before us, their uniforms a stark contrast to the anxiety that gripped my chest. "Put your hands where I can see them," one shouted, eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for a ghost. The other guard was watching me, brow furrowed in concern, but his attention was quickly drawn to the figure that had been haunting my every step. I felt something behind me, the dark presence that had lingered in the shadows, feeding off my fear. Swallowing hard, I turned just as he stepped into view, a cultish predator unfettered by the frenzy of mallgoers. For a moment I thought he would bolt, but instead he remained still, a malevolent calm surrounding him. "Look at her," he drawled, a smile stretching across his face that sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. "She's been following me, officers. You should ask her why." I shuddered, revulsion twisting in my stomach. "That's not true," I protested, fighting against the pits of despair clawing in my throat. "He's been stalking me. I've been trying to escape him." My voice cracked. I could feel the eyes of the guards bore into me, skepticism flickering in their expressions. "What's your name?" one guard asked, watching me intently. I stammered out my name, desperate to convince them of the truth. "Your friend," he motioned to my wide-eyed companion. "Is this true? Have you seen him harassing her?" "Yes," she squeaked, trembling. "It's true. He's been watching us for weeks. We need help." But the stalker laughed, a slow, echoing sound that made every hair on my body stand on end. "You think you're safe here?" His eyes glinted with a sick sort of excitement. "You know I can always find you, just like I found you tonight." The atmosphere thickened with tension, acutely aware that I was caught in a web of threats and suspicion. One guard took a step forward, attempting to gauge the air between us, while the other radioed for backup. But my heart sank with each passing second. The stalker seemed emboldened, undeterred by the guard's presence. "You can't protect her," he insisted, taking a step forward. "You don't know what she's capable of." "Step back," the guard warned, raising his arms. But it was too late. I could already see the gleam of a knife hidden beneath his coat. Panic surged again, sending me into motion. "Run!" I screamed. My voice sliced through the air as I grabbed my friend's hand and pulled her away, adrenaline propelling us forward. "Let's get to my car." The sound of shouting erupted as the guards tried to contain the situation. I heard disjointed cries behind us as feet thundered against the polished floor, but I didn't look back. Focused solely on the looming exit, I pushed through crowds, weaving past startled faces as if they were merely ghosts. "Where's your car?" my friend gasped, her breaths jagged like set to break. "Over this way," I shouted, straining to keep my grip firm. I could feel the weight of terror riding my heels, urging me onward. We burst into the parking lot, and my heart sank again. My car was still several rows down, buzzing with lights and parked too far away for comfort. I stole a glance back, my gut twisting. Shadows stretched and morphed as figures ran out of the entrance behind us, and my pulse quickened. "Keep going," I urged her, redirecting us toward the car. Every instinct screamed that I had to reach it before he turned the corner, and fear clawed at my skin. I fumbled with my keys, glancing over my shoulder. To my horror, I saw him appear at the entrance, determined and unyielding. I could tell he wouldn't stop until he found us, until something broke. As we reached my car, I threw the door open, panic driving me into the driver's seat. "Get in!" I shouted at my friend, who landed beside me, breathless. I slammed the door shut, locking it as our combined frantic gasps filled the cramped space. "Lily, what do we do?" she begged, eyes wide with fear. Only half listening, I punched the ignition. The engine roared to life, but dread hung in the air like frost. Was he close enough to hear us? I gripped the wheel, heart hammering furiously against my chest.
With a jolt, I shifted into gear, ready to escape. But suddenly it struck me, the endless questions racing through my mind. What if he could find me anywhere? What if I wasn't safe yet? Pushing the thoughts aside, I focused on the road ahead, whipping my head to scan for him. Well, the drive was like a nightmare. Just a flicker of movement caught my eye, and I wasn't sure if it was him or something else. I just want to go home, I muttered under my breath, but my heart sank deeper into uncertainty. What if he was waiting for me again? What if this chase was far from over? Aren't you worried? My friend interjected, her voice breaking through my spiraling thoughts.
What if he follows us? I don't know, I shouted, the frustration bubbling over as we sped into the night, feeling like the darkness seeped into every crack of the car. I was left confronting that ever-present dread. Could I ever escape him? Even the air smelled of uncertainty, like a stark contrast to the joy of escaping this horror. It was cold against the warm comfort of the café that once felt so safe. My hands tightened on the wheel as I drove onward, balancing between fear and the hope of finding safety. But as I glanced into the rearview mirror, I could swear I saw a flicker of movement. No one could really be watching, could they? And as the city lights faded in the distance behind me, I struggled to dismiss the cold thought lingering in my mind, uncertain if the battle was truly over. What if the game was just beginning?